What's up, everybody? It's your crew here from Geekly Goods. Leo here with
Alex
to review Dark Phoenix, everybody. We went to see it yesterday at the Colorado Boulevard Theater, and
womp womp.
yeah, you know, not my favorite X-Men movie.
I preferred others.
Release date wise, this comes right after Logan, which was like such a masterpiece. Like, that movie was a cinematic beauty.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, and it was just like a Western. It was so good that it didn't feel like a superhero movie.
I feel like it was very largely well received.
Yeah, and then you get to this.
This made me a little...
Not a big fan, and you know...
Sad panda.
Right. Oh, sad panda.
Oh.
And you know, it's like Simon Kinberg, this was his first time directing, and he's been writing on these films, I believe since X2 or X3. Like, he's been a writer on just about every single film, or a producer, and he finally stepped up to direct, and you know... I'm not going to say the acting was bad, but the rest of it was crap, man. Like,
yeah, I feel like the actors were a lot limited by everything.
Yeah, I feel like they were limited by the script, the edits.
Definitely, yeah, the edits.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Let's dive into that real quick. Just the characters and the acting. Like, I will say, acting, really liked it.
Yeah, actually, it was probably the best part of the movie for me.
Yeah, like one of the better qualities. You know, Sophie Turner is actually a great Jean Grey.
She's great.
I love her as a character. I really like Ty Sheridan as Cyclops. I didn't like that he was a little bit whiny, but I did like his chemistry with Jean Grey. Like, on screen together, I believe that they were in love with each other. You know, he really cared about her.
Yeah.
And like, he really put his all into that role in that relationship. Like, this was a relationship we didn't get in the past films that much, because you only had Apocalypse. You only had one film giving you fodder before this one, and for no films giving a build up to this, like, their relationship was incredibly believable.
It was very, very, like, truly intimate.
Yeah, like they were, I mean, you know, the kisses and the light handholds.
Yeah, it was like, oh, y'all actually like each other.
She was like, there's one line in the movie where she told him, I will always come back to you, Scott. And like, he repeats that line later in the movie, and you know, he's just, you can tell he's just like so distraught because he loves her, and seeing her evolve into what he knows she doesn't want to become, and what's against the X-Men. I mean, he was just so torn up about it that I was like, damn, are y'all dating in real life?
Yeah, for real. That was probably my favorite part.
Yeah, I really love those two together, and I really liked Storm and Scott together as well.
I also really liked that dynamic. That was good. It was believable, it was real, and it was a different romantic dynamic than the other one.
Yeah, for sure. Very trusting of each other. You know what I mean? It was like first in command, second in command type of relationship.
Right.
And I really enjoyed like her coming on screen and really hitting him with reality, because when Jean was becoming Dark Phoenix, like of course he's in love with her, and he was kind of in a quarrel, but she's like, you know, Scott, you were wrong. This is what's happening to her. She's evolving into what's worse, and man, it was good chemistry there.
I would definitely agree with that. I loved it.
Yeah, who was your favorite character in the movie?
I wish we had gotten more Quicksilver.
Yeah.
In retrospect,
my goodness.
When we left the movie, I was very struck. I thought Nightcrawler was very fun to watch.
Yeah, really liked him.
He was goofy, he was quirky, but they did give him like a badass moment.
Yeah,
which was really, really cool. And he was like pretty useful the entire, like pretty,
for sure,
pretty like important the entire time.
I feel like he was integral to the whole process.
Yeah, agreed. And then we got Quicksilver a lot, you know, right at the like kind of the intro part of the movie.
Yeah.
And then we only got like a couple other like jokes from him. But I really liked him in the beginning, and I thought we were going to get more of him, and I'm a little sad I didn't.
Yeah, I like Evan Peters as Quicksilver better than the guy who did it in Avengers. I can't quite remember his name. I
love this guy as Quicksilver.
I love Evan Peters.
He's very lovable.
Yeah, he's really awesome. And of course, the trio, Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, and Jennifer Lawrence, great together.
I love Jennifer Lawrence.
Love them together. And I guess we can move into what kind of threw things off for the actors was the script.
Yeah, a lot of the conversations consisted of like, at one point my friend turned to me and was just like, this is all one-liners. Because all the conversations were just people firing one-liners off at each other until they got bored.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we talked about this earlier. Most conversations seem to consist of like 4 pieces of expositional dialogue, and then the scene would end.
Expositional dialogue. That's some fancy ass shit.
I have a
Love
college
that.
degree.
Me too, but it's been a little while. But yeah, I agree with you in that, you know, you got, like you said, you got a couple pieces of dialogue, and then it cuts. And it's like, what's weird is the dialogue would end before the cut. So there would be this awkward pause, and I noticed there were a lot of unnecessary close-ups right before a cut. Like, one example, spoiler alert, y'all, I'm sorry, Beast was holding onto Mystique, and it was like right in their face. Like, the shot was like right in their face, and it kind of showed him at a quarter turn, and it showed a little bit of the back of her head, and then it cut from that, and I was like, wow, this is such an endearing moment. Why are we cutting so drastically into this time?
On that note, I noticed a lot that they didn't do very many like wide. They would do like an extreme wide shot, like an establishing shot, and then the minute we kind of get into the scene, it's just like in your face close-ups. And then the other thing I noticed was that when there were like 2 shots, the depth of field was like tiny. So you would literally see a character right here, and then the person in the background who was, you know, at times engaging with the character in the foreground was completely like out of focus, and then they would switch to have the character in the background say something and just keep doing it. It's just like, calm down, put everyone in the frame. I know they're beautiful and you paid a lot for these actors, but like, let them breathe.
Right, like, put them in.
Yeah.
And a perfect example of that was an exchange between Storm and Scott.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, right as she's telling him that he's wrong about Phoenix and Jean Grey. Like, she was so, like, weirdly out of frame, and like, what was weird is it would go from like emphasizing on her, so like when her dialogue was up, the frame would frame her, and then when it was his turn, it would come into him, and she like was out of frame a little bit. I just didn't like that. Put them next to each other, like you were saying. Put them on a tripod. Put the camera on a tripod.
This is my new catchphrase: put the damn camera on a tripod and zoom out a little bit.
Seriously, there's some great scenes in this movie. Don't get me wrong, especially towards like the last 20 to 30 minutes.
We finally got an action sequence.
Yeah, we've got some action sequences that are choreographed pretty well.
Fun to watch.
And shot really well.
Fun to watch.
But, I mean, the conversational scenes, just, there was like no emphasis there. And it almost felt like they were giving up a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh, well, Disney bought us out.
Like,
we're done.
We gotta finish
yeah,
this.
like, come on now. And then I also wanted to just talk about the story a little bit. How do you feel about Apocalypse going into this? Doesn't it feel kind of jarring?
It felt jarring, and it also felt like this one failed in all the ways that Apocalypse started to fail, but just like way worse.
It really needed another film in between the two.
I definitely agree with that.
Like, honestly, if these we didn't know these characters, at least this version of these characters, you know, Ty Sheridan as Cyclops, Sophie Turner as Phoenix or / Jean Grey. We didn't know these characters well enough to really cherish the relationships, because as we were saying earlier, the pacing is so rapid that you barely get any time of dialogue. The script is simple, the pacing is really, really quick.
Right. But the weird thing is that, you know, I can only think of you know, maybe 2 or 3 action sequences in the whole movie. And so while we're talking about how the pacing is weird and the dialogue isn't fleshed out, it just feels like there was so much like plot to get crammed in there that we basically just got a lot of cuts from choppy dialogue scenes and people like kind of glaring at the camera, and not a whole lot of like substance, neither in action nor in like character building. No
substance whatsoever. And this would have worked with one film in between, because if you had a film in between kind of building these characters up, establishing these relationships, you know, you've got maybe a mission in a second movie that Storm and Scott go on alone, and that's how they build such a bond together. That's how they're kind of like first and second in command. And Jean Grey and Scott getting I mean, Apocalypse is a little bit hazy for me, I'm not gonna lie. I've watched it once or twice, and I know there was some chemistry between Jean Grey and Scott in that movie, but I don't think there was a full-on relationship like there is here.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it skips a few beats. You know?
Yeah, like they jump right into it. As a story, I just want to just talk about this for a brief moment. You know, Dark Phoenix was one of the most chronic, best X-Men sagas to ever come out. It's Uncanny X-Men, I want to say 129 to 138, I believe, are the issues. And it's just, the events revolving around this series are just so massive and so large in scale. And the story of this film compared to its source material is just so out of left field. Like, I mean, Days of Future Past was manipulated, but I mean, it still followed the formula a little bit.
I like
this
Days of
really
Future Past.
didn't. Yeah, I did too. But this really didn't, in the sense that, first of all, sorry for the spoiler, you've got Vuk as a main villain, who is a very minor character in the comics as a whole. I think he pops up in Namor comics. He might pop up in Dark Phoenix maybe once or twice. And then you've got the Dabari, who are destroyed by Phoenix in the actual Phoenix Saga. You're bringing all these characters in, giving them major roles, when you could have just did that with the Hellfire Club. You could have just brought in Magneto to be like the mastermind and come in and manipulate Jean and let her know, you know, that, well, this is true, real evil. That's a quote from the trailer. He could have been the main antagonist. I guess we'll move on to villains now, because that had a chronic villain issue.
So the villain for me, definitely, I know that within the story too, like, fell flat, but even just in the context of the movies, in like all of them, this was like one of the worst villains I've ever seen. Like,
worse than Apocalypse, you think?
Definitely worse than Apocalypse. Like, I don't even know her name.
Vuk. I mean, I didn't know the woman's name.
Apparently
either.
in the credits, the woman has a name.
Really?
I read that in another critic's review, that she had a name. We just never found out about it. Or maybe they said it once and I just wasn't paying enough attention. But I didn't know her name. The actress I thought was good.
Yeah, Jessica Chastain is fucking awesome.
Yeah, she was great. But like, you know, she didn't have a whole lot to work with.
No.
And like, I didn't understand. At one point, my friend turned to me towards the beginning of the movie where she's explaining the solar flares and like her motivation or whatever. And he was just like, she basically just said, it's magic, don't worry about it.
Right. It's just magic, guys. That's all we need to say.
Don't ask questions.
Boom. Yeah,
let's just get into the chase.
Don't wonder. Let's just get to the train sequence. But I mean, yeah, she was just a poor villain, and the way it was all executed was super poor as well, because we get this shot of like a family having dinner kind of in their home.
Who were those people?
Yeah, we don't know who they were.
Yeah.
We don't know why they were that significant. Look, we get that for like a couple seconds, and then the Dabari are creeping around in the backyard. We don't even see them come to Earth. We don't see them like any kind of motive up front. They're just there creeping around. They kill the family. Jessica Chastain is the form of that specific Davari. His name is Vuk. And then it's just her the whole time. And it's just kind of weirdly played off, like awkward.
Honestly, that whole storyline of the movie didn't really advance the plot.
No.
Like, it didn't incite any actions. It didn't really influence any choices. Her interactions with Jean were mostly a product of Jean's independent decisions that she probably would have made anyway. You know, like, I feel like the movie could have had 3 full acts without that villain 100%.
100%. I want to talk a little bit about Jean. There was no moment in this movie where Jean went, like, straight berserk.
Yeah,
like,
no.
she was losing control. It was slipping. But there was no moment in this movie where she just went completely out of control like in X3.
Even the moment that was supposed to be like the big inciting action of the whole, which I don't really want to spoil it.
Yeah, I hear you.
But you know, there is something that happens that influences characters to make decisions, but it's supposed to be like the inciting action, the thing that leads us into the big plot of the whole thing. Even that didn't feel like she lost control or that she was, you know, whatever. Like, it literally just felt like, oopsie.
Yeah, I wanted her
That
to lose
was
some
bad.
dadgum control, man. But out of 10, what are you giving Dark Phoenix?
I'm gonna go probably like a 4 out of 10. I would give it a 3 out of 10 if it were not for that last action sequence, which I would watch that again. But even the action sequence in and of itself kind of had some plot holes, which is a weird thing to say.
Oof.
But a lot of parts of this movie were fun to watch. The actors are fun to watch. There's like 2 action sequences that are fun to watch. Yeah, I didn't fall asleep, so.
Yeah, you know, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. And the reason why I give it the 6 is because the trilogy is still very strong. Up until about the end where Magneto, some of his choices were kind of funny. But Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, they're all phenomenal together on screen. Seeing that chemistry between Professor X and Magneto again, I can watch a whole movie with just those two going back and forth,
Agreed.
doing things together like that. And I did like that last 20 to 30 minutes when we got some action, some dynamics. But other than that, I was pretty bored.
Yeah, there are a couple of negatives that we didn't touch on for the sake of time. Like I thought, set design was kind of weak.
Whack.
The music wasn't great, and like Charles Xavier in general as a character.
A little weak.
We could get into that, but we won't.
Yeah, you guys let us know what you guys thought about the movie. I mean, Dark Phoenix is coming out this weekend. Are you going to go see it? Because I recommend if you're a diehard X-Men fan, definitely check it out. But if you're kind of a passive superhero movie, maybe this isn't the one for you. But guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Geekly Goods. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow Geekly Goods on all social media platforms, and grab something from our store. We take $1 of every purchase and donate it to arts education to keep arts in the classrooms. We'll see you next time.